Today in the media conference with Lal Goel, which is brought to you by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV India, News Gaon Se, Samvad Sarokar News, Organ Donation India Foundation, Gyan, and Indo-Gulf Management Association. Our endeavor is to bring to you every day a new topic and enlighten you with the current topics. And today our topic is a very interesting topic because the topic is games managers should play. A game is a structured form of play, usually undertaken for entertainment or fun, and sometimes used as an educational tool. Games are distinct from work, which is usually carried out for remuneration, and from art, which is more often an expression of aesthetic or ideological element. However, the distinction is not clear-cut, and many games are also considered to be work, such as professional players of spectators sports or games, or art such as jigsaw puzzles, or games involving an artistic layout such as mahjong, solitaire, or some video games. According to one study from the National Safety Council, US companies lose between $200 to $300 billion per year due to absenteeism, tiredness, burnout, decreased productivity, workers' compensation claims, increased employee turnover, and medical insurance costs resulting from employees' work-related stress. And as shown by the statistics, it is taking a toll. Fortunately, the playful human spirit seems to always hunger for games. As such, there are a wealth of time management games available. Still, there is something to be said for the traditional time management games that involve human interaction and have been used for decades to point employees and teams to areas where they can make better use of their time. With just a few easy to access supplies, these games can be played right in your workspace. And I am giving you some games. I am just telling you how one can play. Although I am also doing it for the first time when I have to do the research, and because Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal always wants to give a challenging topic, so I have to work. So it's some interesting games I want to share with you viewers. So you can also, if you want, you can note down, or if you want, you can play, or you can hear afterwards. The first game is, how long is a minute? A minute is 60 seconds. But you might be surprised at what you perceive to be 60 seconds. You might be even more surprised at what your co-workers perceive to be that same amount of time. This is a good game to start with, and it goes like this. Bring everyone into a room where all of the clocks are covered. Ask them to take a seat, put their phones away, and remove their watches. Have them shut their eyes. Instruct them to stand up, then open their eyes when a minute has passed. Obviously, they will all stand and open their eyes at different times, and there will likely to be a little laughter. This demonstrates the way in which each of us experiences time differently. Some will perceive 60 seconds as longer than it is, others as shorter. Having the knowledge of your own perception can lead you to better estimate how much time an activity or project might take. Now, game 2, race to the ace of spades. This one requires 2 sets of cards. Organize one deck of cards in order of aces to kings in the correct suits and all facing the same direction. Take the other deck and mix it all up. Have some cards facing forwards and some backwards. Gather everyone into a group and pick 2 volunteers. Give one volunteer the organized deck and the other volunteer the chaotic deck. Have them race to find the ace of spades. It should come as no surprise that the person with the organized deck almost always find it much faster. The one with the mixed up deck might get frustrated or complain that it is not fair, further emphasizing how good organization's skills relate to time management. Game 3, colored blocks. I'm sure Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal might be laughing on me what types of games Mr. Goel is just. But I want that the viewer should also be benefited. They should also understand that these types of games are playing. It's a very elementary games. I am not sure what about the secondary or the third stage games, but that definitely our panelist will be speaking. So now the third game is colored blocks. Obviously, you need colored blocks for this one. The number of blocks will depend on how many people will play this game at a time. Place the different color blocks on a table and explain that each individual must pick up as many blocks as they can in 1 minute. With these ground rules, they must pick up with their non-dominant hand. So if you are using your right hand, so you have to pick up from left. If you are using your left hand, if you are lefty, use your right hand. They may only pick up one block at a time. When the time is up, record their name and give a point for each block collected on a flip chart. Celebrate the winner, then spread out the blocks again. This time, assign values to the block color, such as yellow equals to 1 point, red equals to 2 points, and repeat the exercise with the same goal of getting the most points. Now they must think not only about the number of blocks, but also about the number of points for each block. This is an exercise that stresses the importance of prioritizing. Game 4, what I did yesterday. Here is how this one works. Bring everyone together and ask each of them to jot down 10 things they did at work yesterday. Next, on a separate sheet of paper, ask them to jot down the 5 topics that they expect to discuss at their next appraisal or performance review. Have them look at the 2 lists together and mark in some way on the first list all the things which have a direct link to the second list. The funny thing about this is how quick we are to try to justify our actions. Many people may try to make indirect links to do just that. The real aha moment comes with the recognition that we spend time on things which have little or no impact or effect on our performance. If you take it one step further and have them plot that list to 10 things on a grid that stresses importance or urgency, it requires them to sort out what is truly relevant toward better managing their time. This game clearly links performance with activity. Game 5th, big picture puzzle challenge. This one is a pretty straightforward. Divide your groups into teams. Give each them a puzzle with a similar level of difficulty. Don't give them the big picture of what it will look like when completed. Push them to complete the puzzle as quickly as possible. Interrupt the process after about 3 minutes and ask what is missing. What's making this difficult? They will likely state that the absence of the completed big picture as a guide is making it very difficult. Once you give them the big picture, ask them to complete the puzzle and they will be able to do it much faster. Having the clarity of the big picture helps in planning activities and projects much more effectively. If no big picture is available, then time is spent on urgencies, preferences, and what others want one to do, and that is wasted time. Call it revenge of the nerds if you like, but many high school chess players are landing the most coveted strategic planning positions at major corporations. Chess players realize that good strategic decisions require taking into account the likely moves and counter moves of other players. They study their competitors' approach to the game and identify the likely sequence of moves that will follow any particular move they make. By looking forward and reasoning backward, they make moves that drive the game towards a checkmate victory. Looking forward and reasoning backward, this ability to look forward and reason backward is enormously valuable to strategic decision makers in the business world. The good news is that game theory provides a structured process that can help managers make better strategic decisions when faced with uncertainty about competitive conduct. Game theory is not new. Economists, mathematicians, and political scientists have been developing it for over 50 years. What is new is the increased emphasis on using game theory as a practical strategic decision-making tool for real-world managers. For example, most participants in the recent US personal communication services Spectrum auctions hired game theorists to develop their bidding strategies. If time management is tough for you, don't despair. You are not alone. 43% of Americans categorize themselves as disorganized, and 21% have missed vital work deadlines. Nearly half say disorganization causes them to work late at least two times each week. But these time management games, in tandem with valuable time-saving software and other techniques, will get you well on their way, on your way. Now, this topic about the games manager should play have lots of other many games, and all top I must say the managers or those who are in the helm of this industry, they create new games with their own experiences. So there is no dearth of the games. It all depends how and which game is suitable for a particular industry or for a particular job. To discuss this very important aspect today, because at our time we used to say when the corporates are working, they used to provide some games like table tennis or carom or some board games, so one can go and have some time spent there. But now these types of activities which are happening in almost all the corporates are basically, it's a team building exercise. It's giving you the time management, as well as it is sharpening your skills and fixing your targets and how to achieve the targets. Now, to discuss this very important topic, that is games manager should play, we have a very elite, experienced, or those who are on the helm of these affairs, and those who themselves at one time the managers, they are still managers, but a few of them, and we have our Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal, who is not a manager, rather he trained and he built the managers. So I would like to invite my first guest. He is Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal. Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal is the former Professor of Marketing, Innovation and Management, IIM Lucknow, XLRI Jamshedpur, and California State University, USA. He is President of Indo-Gulf Management Association. He is US Fulbright Fellow Boston, EFMD Fellow Paris, and British Council Fellow London. In 2019, he was ranked among the 251 most fabulous global education leaders. Welcome, Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal. Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal, when I was briefing or telling our viewers that those games, I can see a very creaky smile on your face. And I was knowing that for you, it's a childish thing which I am doing. But to be very frank, when I was doing the research yesterday night, and when I found this thing, after lots of difficulty, I found that I must read out these things to my viewers, so at least they will have a fair basic ideas what the managers can do. Even they can do at their home. Even for the home management also, I think this is something which can be beneficial. But definitely we would like to know from you the games managers should play. Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal, please. Please unmute. Please unmute.
Thank you, Mr. Goel. I was not at all, smiling from the point of view of what you said, but I was smiling only for one reason, that you never cease to amaze me, with wonderful ideas, with wonderful background research, and with excellent, I would say, set of stimuli for people to think differently, for people to speak differently, and for people to listen also to the things which probably they know in a very different manner. I'm really grateful to you for today for two reasons. Number one, that this is the first occasion where the average age of the speakers is very low, because otherwise I always raise the average age of the speakers. Here we have very young, not young from the way that we understand, they are all in their 30s, like that, but still, these people are having the kind of, freshness and approach that we can all learn from. So that is one reason I thought that this is the first time that I am, feeling younger in the age of these young people. Of course, you were always young, but I meant only about me. The second part, why important is that you have given an excellent, dimension to the very, very controversial part at some point of time, that whether we are making people to play or whether we are making people to learn. And if play and learn has some kind of connection, even at that stage where we are talking about managers, or we know that there are play schools, we know that there are play, grounds where babies and the toddlers, and as they grow, they also learn through playing. But do managers also require such kind of things? Now, all these things became important to me, and in fact, I also became their student in 1984. And why I remember that 84, because I joined XLRI in 1984, and at that time there used to be one of the most popular teachers, and his name was Father E.J. McGrath. He was an American priest, Jesuit priest, but amazing person as far as XLRI is concerned. XLRI was built by him in a very, very substantial manner. Now, he used to play these games in his class. And when I saw him that he was leading the students through blindfolding, through team play, through different ways, I said, what is he doing? He never, and his classes used to be among the most popular classes. And even I also used to go and learn from him. That was my first introduction to games. And believe me, at that time also people were a little bit, I would say, apprehensive that perhaps we are, just engaging them and not we are educating them. And that was one criticism, or at least downside, that people had talked about. The second thing I came to know of this thing when I was teaching at Delaware University, USA, where first time I used computer games, simulations, coming out from a very, very well-known organization in the world. In fact, it is the leader in that, and that is called Marketplace. Now, Marketplace has some of the best simulations of management, and I'm very proud to say that the president of that and I are very close friends. Now, as a result of that particular thing, he was also to come on this particular show, but unfortunately, the timing of today here in India and US doesn't match. So that is why he couldn't. Otherwise, I spoke about the show to him about 10 days ago, and I said, "Why don't you come?" He said, "Mohan, I will come on another time, another day when this particular thing works." So I said, maybe then I'll talk to Mr. Goel at another time about this. Now, in that particular thing, what happened was just opposite to what father was doing. Father was doing mostly through his own charm, through his own facilitation. But here the person was replaced by the computer. Here the person was replaced totally by what is known as algorithms. Now these algorithms are nothing but the preset models, preset calculations, preset norms. So computer will make the calculation that if I put more money into marketing research, then what will happen to my market share, or what will happen to my market share will also affect my requirement of distribution channels. So that was the second introduction. The third introduction of mine was at a very, very different level, and that was at a very young level of a high school students of Canada. These students were given just about 10 or 12 days of free training by the University of Manitoba, Canada, where I was teaching, and where these students would be brought and taught by the professors what business management is all about, all free, all part of social responsibility. And all these students, high school or sixth or seventh students, they will be given a very, very huge task of creating a profitable business out of whatever ideas they have. And university would provide the background and as well as the infrastructure where they will sell their things, and later on our goal was to see who made the biggest profit through that particular thing. So these students were absolutely excited. We will take them to Walmart, we will take them to different kind of retailers, wholesalers, where they will never tell us what is the business they are going to present on that particular day, but they did, and entirely. So what I'm trying to say here is that these games also became more refined, much more scientific, much more skill driven, and most important, that they became edu entertainment. Edu entertainment is a combination of educating a person in an entertaining manner rather than in a boring manner. And this particular technique of teaching was frowned upon by many traditional teachers who thought that we are just, being a clown in the class. And instead of being a sage, we are becoming clown in the class. And that was the thing which we were really struggling at how to deal with such people, because they were creating a different kind of environment, as if accounting cannot be taught by games, or as if mathematics cannot be taught by games, or stats can. I mean, that's why I was amused the way you gave those examples of 60 minutes or 1 minute or second, that how you engage the people. So what new characteristics came as a result? These games became important. Number one, that people really started having lower duration of concentration. People did not, you couldn't get the attention of anyone more than 5 minutes or 6 minutes or 7 minutes. As earlier we used to get 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or if Swami Vivekananda is speaking, it could become, like half hour with rapt attention. Now that kind of things were just gone. So we had to engage a 60-minute or 90 minutes class in a very, I would say, pieces of engagement rather than one large boring class. So that was number one point. That number two was, and which is extremely important, that industries wanted ready to deploy students. Ready to deploy students is like airline, that the airline would like to have pilots who know how to run the pilot, how to run the plane already. So therefore, there is, as you know, flight simulator, and in that flight simulator they are supposed to fly the plane. They are supposed to fly the plane in the clouds, in different kind of extreme weather, in different kind of challenging situations, so that they do not learn at work. Because if they learn at work, there could be mistakes, and there could be accidents, and there could be fatal accidents. That is why pilots are always, taught in a simulation or simulator rather than an actual work. So this was the third change which took place, that instead of learning at work, you first learn to work and then work. And that is how the experience was given to them. So given these situations, simulations now have become a very engaging, very educating, very entertaining, and at the same time enduring learning mechanism. There are six types of simulations which are possible. Number one is what is called concept games. So these concept games is that where we play the game where all the elements of that particular subject are networked, mapped, or they are put together, so that the entire concept of marketing, management, finance, accounting, manufacturing is clear to them. So that is the concept game. The second is the process game. In the process game, they learn how to make a jalebi, if you know what I mean, or how to make a imarthi, or something which is very complex, but still it should come out very well. So it is not a straightforward method, but they learn how to do that. So how to put money into media, in social media, in entertainment media, different kind of processes are taken. Number three, which is very important, is strategic game. Strategic games are like what army and other people they play, because military people are among the best game players, because they create war scenarios. They create war scenarios of your enemies, from where the attack will happen, how you will repulse it, what you will do in order to counter that. So all that comes and we learn from that. So this is the third kind of game, strategy game. The fourth one is a functional game. Functional game is that where we learn a particular function of management, maybe accounting, auditing, manufacturing, supply chain management, marketing, any or HR or recruitment or counseling people. So all those kind of things will become functional games, and those particular things are also there. And finally, there is this totality game in which the entire organization, how it is run with manufacturing. So maybe a situation could be that you are given money, you are given a concept of a green bicycle, and how this green bicycle tomorrow will become your product to sell. How will you make it profitable in the next 10 rounds? Each round is like 1 year or 3 months, quarter, whichever you may like to take it. And you are given that within this time, either you go bust or you go billionaire. So those kind of things are possible. So games have become today the new case studies. The new case studies which were given to us at Harvard Business School, at Harvard Medical School, at Harvard Law School, because Harvard is known for these cases and each and everything there. So it was like medical history, legal history, all those things they used to learn through that particular thing. Now, what is the downside of the game? The first downside of the game is that if the instructor himself or herself is not very well trained, if that particular person does not know when to intervene, when not to intervene, what to say, what to how to brief, how to allow them to debrief. So briefing and debriefing become very big tools of learning in games. So that is number one, challenge you could say, or downside you could say. And right now in India, we have very few trainers, very few instructors who are experienced in that. The second downside is that the game itself could be faulty, in the sense that you have designed it or you have simulated it, but you have not tested the simulation in different scenarios. So it may work, it may not work in those particular scenarios. And as a result, people are learning or getting frustrated because the algorithms are not working exactly the way it is. Just to give you one simple example, that recently I put a little bit of money into quant investment. Quant investment goes on algorithms. And when the market was going up, I was losing money into that particular mutual fund. And I said, what the hell is going on? Even though best people are working like IITs and others, and why I'm losing money while the market is going down. Within, I would say, 25 days, my fortune reversed for the better. Why? Because those simulations started working. So here I learned one more thing. The simulations also require scenarios, and those scenarios may not be all the time very well done. So to sum it up, and I know I want to listen to others also, I would say that now games have become a very valid method of learning, very good method of teaching, and very good method of interacting also, because social interaction, team interaction are very important for people to do at work as well as in the class. Thank you very much, Mr. Goel, for giving me this opportunity to provide the background as well as the typology of games and what are their pluses and minuses. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal. As always, you are so articulate about any topic whatsoever is there. But what he said, I would just like to highlight few of the things. He says earlier, yes, it was done through the physically, that teachers or those trainers, they used to teach. But now the computer is doing the calculations, computer is designing the programs, algorithms, and there the games have been provided. And he has given the example how when he was teaching in Delaware or even at Canada, how the teaching instead of teaching physically, they are doing the teaching through the games, which is very important. He says to teach a management that games are playing a very important role. And he says the new terminology which has recently means I think about 40-50 years back it was coined, is called edu entertainment. And he also mentioned about how the things to be deployed in the industry ready, because nowadays every industry, and I remember one of the media conference, in my earlier media conference, one of the panelists told very clearly, today the corporates want a ready to work
Correct.
Without giving any training. Their corporates are not ready to give training. They are not even ready to give any briefing. They says we want a aspirant who is joining us. The first day he should start the working without waiting or for getting. So he says now people wants that type of thing in industry, and for that lots of stimulators have been developed. He mentioned about the flight stimulator, how the pilots have been trained in the flight stimulator. But I have seen in the medical colleges now, instead of earlier they used to learn from the human body, the dead
Yes.
body. Now there are stimulators which are there like the human body, but everything is there. And once they are even doing surgery, everything they can do through the stimulator with the help of computers. Definitely it's not a but so that first thing they will be learning more and more things with the help of the computers, which physically if they have to do, like he has mentioned that you cannot give a trainee pilot during the bad weather unless he's not trained how to take at that time, how to fly at that time. So all these things according to him, and he has given 6 types of games which are nowadays very common, and which is the first is the concept games, then the process game, strategic games, functional games, totality games. So he has given all those, and he has already described. I need not to give take your own time for that. But he says there are negative points also. The first thing is the instructors are not properly trained. If they are not in understanding what for they are doing this game and what is the ultimate motto. And secondly, he says if the game itself is defective. So there are many points. Plus, he says that sometimes condition. He has given his own example how he has invested money, because I know Professor Dr. Agarwal is having tons of money, so he has to invest here and there. So he has invested in one of the mutual fund, and it was going down, but it has again come up because it was planned accordingly. So one has to see all those conditions, how it is done. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal, for giving your opening very, very, I must say, effective and enlightening thoughts. Now, I would like to invite my next panelist guest, and she is Miss Rosemary Day. Miss Day is the catering sales manager of ITC Hotels India. She is a sales professional with over 2 decades of experience. She has been blessed to have worked with the finest brands, the Times of India, the Statesman, Taj Hotels, Oberoi Hotels, Radisson, and Accor. She is working with ITC Hotels corporate sales with a special focus on medical and pharma segment. Her forte has been customer relationship management, which she developed over the years. Welcome, Miss Rosemary Day, on our show. Miss Day, you have heard what Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal has spoken, and he has given his views, and he has explained how and his own experience from 1984 till now. Now, you also have a 2 decades of experience, and you have worked almost all the top brands available in India. And you are still working with a very renowned chain of hotels, and you are working for the medical and pharma segment. Definitely, you can explain what is the meaning of that special focus on medical and pharma segments, because nowadays medical and pharma, we believe only 2 things, that how to manage COVID or how to manufacture vaccine. So these
Correct.
2, so whether this segment you have something to do with that. But thing is, today everyone is talking about the games, all, and especially in the corporates. And I'm sure with your experience with all the top corporates, you might have also, you are totally aware about these types of games. You might have seen the different types of games, because the different segments of the brands you have worked, like the Times of India and the Statesman is one segment, and the hotels are different segment. Accor is also different in this way, that there is some memberships and whatnot. So that is again a different segment. So your experience and your take on on this, that games managers should play, Miss Rosemary Day, please.
Good morning, everyone. And Professor Agarwal and Mr. Goel, thank you so much for the kind words that you've, shared about me. Really, really impressive. Thank you so much. Well, the statement is extremely powerful that we're discussing today, and deceptive that it might sound. It forms the basis of developing and creating a very strong and effective team. I have moved across different industries, and I've seen how the perception about sales personnel per se changes a job which was extremely difficult for me, like reaching out to a very important key decision maker in the earlier phase of my career, when I was, of course, several notches junior. And now, when I'm in the hospitality industry where I sell experiences more than anything, is far more easier. I don't sell food and beverage, I don't sell rooms, I sell experiences. Because you dream about a vacation, you dream about one wedding all your life, and we make it happen. So it's the experience we sell, and the feedback that we get from people are the basis which forms the way we move forward, the way we plan things. Especially, we would like to define the perspectives into post pandemic and pre-pandemic. Pre-pandemic, of course, things were different when we would not really consider so much about how the customer would react. We would just do what our rule book says. But now we have to have a proper amalgamation of both, follow the rule books as well as keep the customers happy. Now, having said that, I just want to harp a little bit on what Professor Agarwal just mentioned about the kind of trainings and the kind of interactions managers have with their teams. Earlier, over the years, the managers have formulated different methods of imparting knowledge, training to their teams. We can start from the erstwhile PowerPoint presentations in boardrooms where we used to, ponder and deliberate on topics and find out perspectives which would work best for the organization. But now they actually prefer an amalgamation and a fusion of both. They would like to have simulations, and they would also like to impart knowledge, because end of the day, everything has to sell. And if I'm selling something, my numbers matter. So when my numbers matter, I have to have a presentation and some heavy discussion. Now, I think this is what formed the basis of developing these simulations and the experiential trainings that are so effective these days. I myself have participated in a lot of them. Company has been very kind on imparting these trainings to me. So I know how it feels. Firstly, you are completely cut off from your realistic world, which is not so happy all the time. And you enter the world of experiential training where a trainer makes you feel as if you are the hero or the heroine of that particular day. And I think that kind of completely changes the mind zone. We get into a very, very creative, formulative, and a happy mind zone. So everything inside that training room sounds very nice, makes me very happy. I'm given toughest of the situations. I deliberate with my particular team and find out a solution, make, the particular activity that is assigned to the team, I make it happen. But what happens when I step out of the training room? Things are not so rosy. They're not so nice. I can have an extremely difficult customer. And at that particular point in time, and I'm being honest here when I say, I really don't remember what was taught to me in the virtual training class. That is the test of patience. And that is the test of what I have been taught. So while I completely agree that, simulations are important, because if I don't know that these difficult situations exist in this world, I will not find an answer to them. But when I actually come and face to face with the situation, how I behave, how I react is what makes me different from the rest of the sales personnel. So, these trainings, I feel, should be focused more on building the mind zone, because a strong person, whether it's sales or service or any kind of product or services that an individual is getting into a transaction mode with a customer, the strength of the mind is what makes me different from the rest. And I feel every organization should invest in training methods where they don't just train about the products and the services that the team is supposed to sell, but they also train, the confidence levels and the confidence with which they have to go and face the world. Because ultimately that is the game changer, because customers will keep haggling for the last penny, and you have to ensure that you don't give out what you are not supposed to. Now, experiential training, like Professor said, has its negatives also, because I am in the midst of my group of friends. I do it my way and I know I will get away with it. Then I don't really enjoy the process because there is not too much of a friction. So my trainer will always try to help me out. While when I'm out in the open, there will probably be none. Even my manager will probably say, okay, you handle it because you messed it up. and walk away. So, here I have that cushion of support, but when I'm left in the lurch, I don't. So that is the second point, which kind of falls a little behind with these simulations and experiential trainings. Uh, having, then the second part is a better way of creating leaders. When you are training leaders, a manager or a leader, uh, you have different kind of frictions which come across, not just from the external source, which is the customer, but your team, who was so used to you being a part of them, is suddenly not. You kind of have to maintain a distance. You can be friends with them, but you can't be friendly with them. Because the moment you disrupt that line of friendship and leadership, friction starts. So this is not taught anywhere, in the entire world, or even in PowerPoint presentations, I would say. So regular interactions with which we build a team is what makes or breaks the ultimate game. And having said that, I personally uh, enjoy a mix of both. I would also want to sit across the table, have group discussions with my uh, team over a cup of coffee. And similarly, I would probably want to take an offsite and enjoy the entire day, where they refresh their minds, sharpen their saw, and get back to work the following day, only to be more productive and more efficient. And I would like to end with what the Bard says: all the world is a stage, and we men and women are mere performers. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rosemary Day, for giving your views. And as her her profile says very clearly, that she is from the marketing side, and she has worked with the top brands. But what she says, earlier it was difficult because she has to take the appointments and try to sell the products with a top notch. But nowadays it's just selling the experience. And in one way, she has pitched her sales today about the ITC, that in case if you want to go and have a good experience, which she has mentioned, without giving. Now, this is called experience and experiential training. She also mentioned that earlier we were based on the feedback of customers. But now it is not only the feedback, one has to see what is the practicalities happening. And she says it's a very different atmosphere, because whatsoever we are doing on our board or our room, inside the room, and when we go outside and come to the exact experience, it's totally different. Because if a customer is a very difficult customer, how to handle that customer, no one has taught in that particular way. But because there are lots of other many types of demands which the customer can ask, which is not there in the papers or in the books. And she also mentioned that the confidence level, how you have to, these are the plus points, because she says when the training is there, and they will just stimulate you, how your confidence level, because sometimes although she has not mentioned, but I can mention from my experience, many times it happens that the customer is totally right, but at that time, and customer is boiling like anything, but you have to show that no, it's not our only mistake, something is happening. It's so the confidence level, because if you lose if the manager lose the confidence, then the customer will never be satisfied. But if the customer, the way, whether he or she will do it or not, but at that moment, the decision has to be taken by the manager in such a way that the customer should be satisfied. So all these things, she says that these are the things which, with these types of games, with these types of stimulations, today the managers are learning. Not only this PPT thing, which earlier we used to have, but now it's a fusion stimulation and sales. All the things we have to see, how the confidence level, how your appearance. I will say even it's a total package of personality. Because in one of my media conference, one of the panelists says that the corporates now require only 10% the basic knowledge, 40% is your technical or your work field knowledge, and 50% is your personality. So when this is the situation, these types of games stimulate, these games make your personality with full of confidence and whatnot. And she says this also teaches the teamwork. Although she says there is a negative aspect, is when you have a very close friendship or with your own team. but you have to show some difference, and that is also a negative point. But what she says is it's a very must thing for the managers today, so that the managers overall personality changes, which was not taught in the business school in that way. Thank you very much, Miss Rosemary Day, for your very expert and first-hand experience, your views, because you are already having for last more than 2 decades. Now, I would like to invite my next guest, and he's Mr. Rochak Agrawal. Mr. Rochak Agrawal is the Director of Technology, UBS, a Swiss bank at Singapore. He is a passionate believer in simplified and gamified teaching methodologies and has implemented gamification at corporate scale. Mr. Rochak is an MBA from London Business School and has over 15 years of world-class executive experience. He worked in Hong Kong, London, and Singapore. Today, he is joining from Singapore directly. Welcome, Mr. Rochak Agrawal on our show. Mr. Rochak Agrawal, you have heard what Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal as well as Miss Rosemary Day has spoken. They have given their views. Now, as Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal initially mentioned, that today we have a panelist with a younger generation or with youth, or the age limit is not what Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal, although I know he was commenting on my age because I know I am elder to him. So he just wanted to say, now your time is up. You have to go. Let the young generation should come and take over. So now, but game, when we are talking of game, and I was to be very, very surprised, rather shocked to read this word called gamified and gamification. So we would definitely like to know about all these things and your views on the games managers should play. Mr. Rochak Agrawal, please.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Mr. Agrawal, Mr. Goel, for this invite today. And I would just like to say we have a lot to learn from you, Mr. Goel and Mr. Agrawal. We can be young by age, but your experience definitely is much more valuable than anything that we can provide here. I would like to start off talking about a game as well. And the game I want to talk about is called Go, G-O, Go. It is a game that was first played almost 2,500 years ago in China and Japan, and it is still played a lot in Asia, especially with I think there are over 40 million people who are playing this game today. And the game is played. It's like a board game. It has got 19 by 19 squares. There are two players. Each player has got a black and white stone. And the game is that you have to move your stones on the board, and you have to devise strategies to encircle the other player and ultimately win the game. The rules are very simple, but one of the most amazing things about this game is that if you count the number of combinations that is possible to make the next move, the number is much more than you can ever imagine. In fact, the number of possible legal combinations to make your next move is 10 to the power of 170, which is, just for comparison, is more than all the atoms in the known universe. So it's an extremely complex game from that standpoint, but the rules are extremely simple. And it is our human mind that has been successfully playing this for centuries. We still play that today. And in fact, we have even come up with the concept of this game. What I'm trying to say here is that games like these and the way we study them, the way we have developed them, the way we play them has a lot to be brought into even the corporate world. Imagine that you are the manager of an organization and you have received two resumes. You have interviewed both the two candidates, both the two student candidates. All of them are equally skilled in terms of their technical skills, and they've all answered well in the interview. And if you have to make a decision as to which one to pick up, you are actually thinking. And that's when you notice that in the third page, in the bottom of the page, under the hobby section, the person has said that they like to play a game of Go or they like to play a game of chess. Should that affect your hiring decision? And my attempt over the next 5-10 minutes that I have would be to convince you that it is extremely important that the skills that game playing builds and the tools that it provides cannot be picked up by any other thing. And this is why my statement would be, or whatever my pitch would be, that we should definitely be encouraging the candidate who has got game playing experience. In terms of the workplace, right? I mean, I've been working in my workplace for the last 15 years, and I've noticed one thing, and these are just a few words that I picked up, right? We will always ask the question in a meeting, what is your playbook? When we speak to a person, we'll say that, oh, he's an exceptional player. He makes good moves. If we are speaking about another person, we'll be saying, what is the end game? Or what is your winning strategy? So these are all terms which are very common lingo, which are actually borrowed from the game industry, which are being used in the workplace. Uh, but if you also notice a person playing solitaire or minesweeper, suddenly you would feel that, oh, this requires a conversation with the HR because you're not allowed to play games like these. And my attempt would be that this should change, because games bring something which other tools can't. Books, for example, are great for intellectual stimulation, but they actually miss the human to human interaction. And in today's world, we heard the speakers before me say that human to human interaction is extremely important. Books can't provide that. Coaching and mentoring, while extremely important, but it is very difficult to scale it up at a corporate scale. You can have a coach, you can have a mentor for your key talent, or for your most for the talent that you want to protect, but trying to coach and mentor an entire team or an entire department is extremely difficult. So the scalability is not there. uh, you can conduct pilots, you can conduct simulations, but they are extremely expensive to operate. And this is where I believe a game can come in. A game or a simulated game has none of these disadvantages. Number one, it provides experiential and interactive learning. My earlier panelist spoke very correctly about building the mindset. The mindset is extremely important, because a real life incident can be very different from an experiential study that we have studied in a 1 hour or a 2 hour training. But this simulated study and an experiential game would actually help you in changing your mindset. And it is also extremely cheap in once you've set it up. So once you've set up a simulated game, or once you've set up a simulated gamified system, you can have 2 players, you can have 3 players, you can have multiple players joining in online from multiple countries playing. So a gamified system, once you set it up, it takes about 3 to 4 weeks to set it up properly for the business process. Once it's set up, you can actually scale it up very easily. And also you get real time feedback on a player. When you get scores and when you get points, it's very hard to argue that who is winning and who is losing, because those are not disputable. And you can also see how the employee is playing the game. That gives you a bit of a feedback or the behavioral idea, which is very difficult in any other interaction. So you can see how an employee is accepting a win, or how an employee is accepting a loss. Are they taking any shortcuts? Are they taking any cheat codes in the game? Are they becoming overly aggressive when they're about to lose? And it is very hard to mask the true intentions, or to mask your true self when you're actually fully engaged in any particular activity. One of the other things I would say about a smart game, which has to be designed well, is that it will always keep players in what is called a flow zone. A flow zone is what psychologists say is a condition when a person is at their peak performance. They are not easily distracted. They are completely focused, and that is the time when they produce the best output. And if you have a well-designed game system, then the employees can be brought to a flow state at a much higher amount of time. And finally, games requires managers to also look into the environment in a completely different way. It allows the managers to take calculated risks. You can do scenario testing, you can do hypothesis testing. In a real life, if you have to build another scenario, it will require a huge amount of investment. and you would have to be worrying about a failure or a bankruptcy risk. But in a game system, you can actually work across multiple of these scenarios, and see how what the output would end up being. I would like to give an example from the investment bank where I'm working. Right, uh, when we do a merger and an acquisition, you can actually employ game study or game system pretty well. What you can do is you can have a game system which is designed on that particular mergers and acquisitions. You can have employees who will play up the role of a government regulator or citizens or activists. You can then divide the groups into teams, and let the team play the game, and see how they play it out. What is the best strategy? What is the competition? How do they make allies with the regulators and the citizens and the other players? And the other thing which a game system can do also is that you can do a replay. So you can relook at what move worked, what strategy worked, what failed, and try to do things differently. And to further add spice to the whole game system, you can add an external shock. So you can suddenly bring in a new technology, a new barrier, a new competitor, and suddenly shake up the whole game. And this will always keep the players on their toes. I just want to be very clear that the games and the simulation system I'm suggesting, these are very different than what we are traditionally used to. So traditionally, what companies do is they would be doing some team bonding exercises, or there would be some couple of hours of training. You may be taken out for a hiking or an outing or a picnic. While these are extremely useful and they help change the mindset, but you're actually encouraged to not to talk about work. In fact, that's the most commonly used phrase, right? That do not talk about work when you're on this outing. But the game studies that I'm talking about, the experiential game studies that I'm trying to pitch here, these are complex game systems that are built by vendors, and there are companies in the world who can actually look at your business problem, look at your business project, and design and structure a game system around it. And you are actually meant to talk about work, because the game system has been designed to solve a particular business problem. I mean, this is not the time for me to name one of those vendor companies, but if anyone is interested on how to do that for their company or for the organization, how to set up a gamified system, I mean, I would be happy to provide you some references if you want to reach out to me. The final thing I would want to talk about today is on gamification, and very specifically corporate gamification. A lot of us like playing mobile games, and you would always wonder, like, I love playing mobile games. I would always wonder, how did I end up spending 1 hour or 2 hours playing a game while trying to do something, and it's quite routine and quite boring. You would have the same kind of a character trying to jump over a bridge or trying to jump, and it keeps falling, and you have to keep playing again and again. It's very repetitive, but you still play it and you can stay hours and hours. But trying to do the same repetitive work in a corporate environment, and you would get bored very, very easily, and you'll start making mistakes. Uh, this is what gamification does. So gamification will bring elements of a game into a business problem. A great example would be a customer service desk. So for example, you can set up a gamified system that every time a customer calls and every time a case has been closed, the operator would be avoided points. And you can have a big leaderboard or a scorecard in the area where the service desk operators are working, where you can see who is high or who is lowing in the points. And you can also earn more points if you help your colleagues. So if I'm an operator and I need to speak to another person, I can see, and if I'm helping them out, I can actually earn more points as well. And I will also earn points, not just for uh, not just for helping my colleagues, but even if I'm asking for help, even that will earn me points. And finally, I can lose points if I'm making mistakes when solving my customer problems. The most important thing about this is when we deployed the gamification system, we did not use these points for performance evaluation. So at the end of the year, for salary reviews or benchmarking, these points were not used, and we had told this to our players right at the start. So this takes the pressure off the employees. They know that this game system or the gamification is mainly to make the repetitive work more fun, more engaging. It is not not it is not a direct translation into the performance scorecards. And what you can do is, once these people win the points, they can convert them into virtual currency. And just like in a game, you can level up your player, you can buy a new suit or a new avatar. You can do all those things in the gamified system which we had. And we ran these game systems multiple times in multiple teams in multiple countries. And each time we came out with a positive outcome and a success rate. So to sum it up, I will go back to my earlier pitch. Games have been played for thousands of years. Um, they have been played successfully. People have been happy with it. The era has been changing. Rather than board games, it's more digital games now. But the core concept of a game still stays there. And we are also in the season of the Olympics right now. The sports fever is very, very high. And it is the same kind of a spirit and a fun, right? Which I believe we can bring in to our workplace and also in the universities, as was previously mentioned. So with that, I would like to end, and I will hand it back to Mr. Goel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rochak Agarwal, for giving your very, I must say, the knowledgeable thing, experience thing, and make it in quite Rochak, because in Hindi, the Rochak means very interesting. So you have made it very interesting. But what he says is that he says these games are not new. These are many years before where they are playing. And he has mentioned one game called Go, Geo. Now, he has explained about that Go, how it was played. And he says the combination and permutation in that game is so many that even the atoms are not available on the earth. And he says there is a difference between Go and chess. Although it's not explained, but I'm sure there is some difference. But like chess also was at the one time, it was allowed to play so that people, even at the early stages, everybody says, please play the chess to sharpen the brain, to sharpen the mind. So it is basically the games are there to sharpen your mind. Physical activities like football and cricket, which we used to play, was for the taking our physical health. But one very important point he has mentioned about the merger and acquisition. And he says how, if because he's in a bank, and he says how we used to see it whenever there is we have to do a merger and acquisition, we used to divide the team. And those two teams, and one team will be for the acquisition, or where the company which we have to acquire, somebody is representing the government. And then we will see and what are the difficulties, what are the challenges, and during the game, if some interruption or some disruption comes, how that what will be the fate of that particular company. So this is something which he says, because now time is changing, people are coming out with the new games. Earlier it was ordinary physical, but now because of the help of the computers, the technology, these types of gamifications has taken place. And he says the only thing is, nowadays corporates are not putting pressure on the employees by saying that these are going to impact on your future or impact on your salary thing, but it is more fun. But whenever they win something, they can get some purchase some perfumes or suit, etc., etc. So he says it's a very enjoyable, entertaining, but thought-provoking, and it is also it also gives the HR department a chance to see the behavioral aspect of the employee. How when you win, how you enjoy the win, or how you lose, how you are taking that. So he says these are the advantages. So all the corporates are now doing and coming out with these gamifications. Thank you very much, Mr. Rochak Agarwal, for giving your very enlightening knowledge. And I'm sure that all our viewers are very enlightened with such types of part of knowledge which all our panelists are doing. Thank you very much. Now I'm inviting my next panelist guest, and she is Miss Neha Kumari. Miss Neha Kumari is the data analyst at MITS Marketing Private Limited, New Delhi. Miss Neha Kumari, you have heard Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal, you have heard Miss Day, and you have also heard Mr. Rochak Agarwal. Now we would like to know your views about the games manager should play. Miss Neha Kumari, please.
Thank you so much, sir. First of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I would like to start my views with this 3 to 4 points. Firstly, preaching by itself is too much boring. because I'm a trainer also, and we start our in the training program is a games, like using Google Forms, using dashboards, using dashboards for using the two groups. We divide in two groups, and one group for and giving it one topic, and he creates the graphs, charts, and making fun. But it's a main thing is a real time feedback received from the games. And second thing is a learning increases with games and stories. The learning essence when embedded in games, so we make the learning experience interesting and better results are obtained. Because without preach only using the preaching, we did not interesting, it's not interesting for the learners also and listener also. Second thing is this is learned through by methodology. Firstly, I give the example for it. Mahabharat is a story, it's a long story in which Gita is embedded into it. So maybe that is the great example of games methodologies. And simple games and brain teasers are also used in the training programs in the corporate also. And I'm in a logistic company, and sales programs, when we in the pandemic we did not use the work from home, right? After the pandemic we use work from home and create new things like online games, online uh, meetings also, because we are not going to anywhere. So we start. Firstly, sir, I use your point, Lal sir, winning. But as per my point, winning is not everything. It's the only thing. Second thing, sir, especially game in used in this company, so we remove stress of employees and make them more productive. Mark Zuckerberg also says that I have been playing Civilization since middle school. It's my favorite strategy game and one of the reason I got into engineering. So, sir, that is my views of games methodologies. Games manager should play, and especially thanks to Professor Mohan Agarwal for giving the opportunity. Thank you so much, sir, for this.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Neha Kumari, for giving your views. And she has made a very important point. She says the teaching is boring or the training is boring if it is not with some fun or something not embodied with them. And she has given an example of Mahabharat, how the Gita is embodied in Mahabharat. And she says the main reason for this gaming or games are to remove the stress. And that is very, very important. And that's why now all the corporates are embodying the games in their daily trainings or what sort of training they are imparting, so that the employees, at least their stress can be removed and their productivity can increase. Thank you very much, Ms. Neha Kumari, for giving your views. Now my question goes to Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal. Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal, you not only an authority of innovative marketing, but a professor teaching. Do you think we must change our education system from primary, where we must, as the word used, embodied by Ms. Neha Kumari, embodied the games, not the physical games which are available there, but those games which are required to be a successful or a stress-free person, because main emphasis of the game is to remove the stress and build the confidence, as Ms. Day has mentioned. So all these things, instead that the boy or the aspirant or the student, when he comes to the corporate and at that time, or go to a business school, at that time only he is exposed to these types of gaming. Why not from the childhood with simpler games, and then gradually we increase? What you say about this, Professor Dr.
Thank
Mohanlal Agarwal?
you, thank you very much. As usual, you always make people think in a very insightful directions. This is actually happening, and I'm very proud to say that in India also now the games are being introduced as a method of instruction. In other words, we are talking about instructional games, not just games the way we understand, but instructional games which allow both faculty as well as high school or 8th class students to learn from that particular experience. And I'm very happy to say that in India, this particular thing is happening in high school, but it is at a very limited level. And that particular thing is, Mr. Goel, because of the problem of our syllabus oriented teaching. Syllabus oriented teaching, where the students get marks based on the preset syllabus, preset points, and as a result parents become worried, teachers become worried, and when they become worried, the people like you who own the colleges or who manage the colleges, they also become worried that am I going to lose my students, am I going to create a very poor impression. So that part is happening, but less but growing. Definitely growth is there, like in some very top brands like Reliance or Birlas, they are allowing such things to happen, but occasionally, not as a part of the regular thing. Regular thing is now also going to happen in Dubai, and I'm very happy to again, please, it is not self marketing, that we are working out now a plan where the Emiratis, the people who do not have great language command but have very good command of business, that how they will learn business without using too much language, and using these simulations at a high school or high, it is called higher national diploma or something less than that, where this particular thing will be used. And we are using this particular thing based on the experience in Caribbean countries, where a very good friend of mine who was also actually to scheduled to present today in this conference, but because he's under COVID, so he excused himself. Dr. Stone, he was also coming today along with me on this particular topic from Caribbean countries, where he was doing exactly what you are saying, that he is going to the high school, to the 8th standard, and Shell company, one of the largest petroleum companies, gas companies, energy companies, that is supporting that particular idea as a part of corporate social responsibility. So you are absolutely spot on that this particular thing is happening. But again, I say we have to change our mindset as parents. We have to change our mindset as teachers. We also have to change our mindset as owners or managers of that schools. One more last thing, and then I'll stop because you have other questions also to ask. And that particular thing is that somewhere we have to understand that games are not just like wasting their time. Games are to create enduring understanding, enduring learning, and that can happen only when we catch them young. Catch them young. That's the thing. And thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal. Catch them young is the point which he made. Now, my question goes on the same line to Ms. Day. Catch them young. Now, we have seen in other countries the experiential learning is from the very childhood, from the nursery or first standard or whatnot, which is lacking in India. Now, you are saying, like Professor Mohanlal Agrawal says, the high school or something, but it's still very less because of the mindset. The mindset is of the parents and the teachers and everyone is to secure the marks, get the 100%, 99 point so much marks, then only you are something, otherwise not. But don't you think that the experiential learning, which is required, and as you are working with these top brands, instead of training them now, why not? Because one of the media conference, one of a director of a business school, she says that corporates should give them the sponsor the some students whom they feel that they are going to take them, and give their own suggestions or own things how to be trained there. And so that the colleges will be benefited as well as the corporate will be benefited, because they all have that different needs. It's not that the same thing is required, same knowledge is required, but same different experience. Don't you think that corporates now should take proactive role and try to introduce these things, or put the thing like Dr. Monla Agrawal has said, a few of the companies are doing. But in all the business schools, they must say that we want these types of training to be given there. So when the new employee comes to you tomorrow, he or she will not get a shock that whatsoever he or she has read, studied, there is a difference. And where I have come, here is only games are playing, and they go to the house and say, see, what a organization, they are talking so high, but they are just playing game. What do you say about that, Miss Day?
Sir, I completely agree with you. In fact, one of the, during my interaction, I had mentioned that I only wish corporates and the organizations invest in games which strengthen the mind. You know, like a little baby, the first thing we probably buy the child is building blocks, you know, those colored rounds which they have to insert. And if they don't, then it tumbles down. So that kind of strengthens the mind of the child from a very young age, because I've read somewhere that every child is born with the same intellect level. It's the environment, it's the, you know, the kind of thought that goes into his mind, his his parents, his school, everything adds. And that's when, you know, he either shifts up, remains, or shifts down. So I mean, we are exposed to such things from a very young age. So when, like you rightly said, if a corporate or a business school kind of invest in these games also as a part of their curriculum, I will only get, or like me, all other managers will get very strong minded and very strong willed teammates. And then, like, you know, we can probably tell them the strengths of the product or the service that can be taught. We can tell them that, you know, this is the USP of the product, this is the SWOT analysis of the product. But what we cannot train them is how they are going to behave with that knowledge, because I can't control their mind. Or like me, another manager cannot control their mind. I can, like, you know, I can take them to the guest, but I can't ensure that he or she will probably crack the deal, even though he or she might be getting, you know, top grades in his boards or his MBA final exams. So mind games are very important. Why I'm putting so much of emphasis on mind games is because I have witnessed this in the last 2 years. I come from an industry where human interaction is extremely important. I mean, a hospitality working virtually is something I could never imagine, but I'm doing that. I have also been working from home and getting revenues for my organization. The entire perspective of doing business has changed. You know, my clients, my customers, we call them guests. We don't call them customers or clients. You know, my guests have been interacting with me through the virtual platform and giving us business. We've divided the team. Half of them work from home, half of them side, because some have to be there. So things have been changing, and the only thing constant is change. I think someone already mentioned. So I would personally be very happy if, and I have a teenage daughter who will probably be stepping into the world very soon and fighting for herself. So I definitely want her to have a very strong mind of her own, so that she can, you know, body adjustment we can do, but adjusting the mind is what takes you forward.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jay. I'm sure that one day you should not say that your guests should also stay virtually in a hotel room. That they should not come, or they may come. We don't know tomorrow what is the technology says. Now my question goes to Mr. Rochak Agrawal. Mr. Rochak Agrawal, you have mentioned about Go and others. When we were young, when we were child, not young, we used to play some game called Monopoly, Vyapar in Hindi. And then in 1974, one Hungarian sculptor has come out, the professor, Mr. Erno Rubik. So Rubik cube has come. So all these things were there. Now the Lego has come. What you are talking about, the blocks. Now this Lego, and in USA they have a Lego land where everything is prepared by the Lego, and one can go and visit, and the children are enjoying and learning those things. Don't you think that games are very much there in our life from the very beginning? The shape is changing, the things are changing, advancing. We, as you mentioned about the Go, we were playing the chess, we were playing the Monopoly, we were playing, I am forgetting the name, one where we have just put the connection and the light switch on, that it means you have put a correct thing at that time key. If you have two wires and put it, the Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal can help me to give the name. I am just forgetting, age factor. So all these things were already existing. The time is changing, technology is changing. Don't you think now what you are playing, or what you are training, or what you are giving the as a manager or a senior personnel in the banks, your employees, other employees, that time will change after 10, 20 years. The new games will come. So it's a dynamic evaluation thing which is happening. What you say about this, Mr. Rochak Agarwal?
No, absolutely, sir. And I mean, I've played both the two games you mentioned, and I still play them, whether it's Monopoly or Rubik's Cube. And one major thing that has changed is that the complexity of these games has changed quite a lot. And I'm going to bring my technology hat here with AI, data analysis, huge computing, and complexity. Games are no more as simple as they used to be. And if you have played any recent games, anyone who has played any recent games, they would realize that it is completely a different world altogether. Anyone who has played Minecraft, for example, it started off being on Facebook, and now it's a global phenomenon. The amount of complexity the game designers have put in making that game, you are literally creating an entire universe of your own. You can live two lives. You can live a real life, which is where you are right now on Earth, and then you can live another life in a virtual world called Minecraft, where you may be having a family, you may be having a baby, you're actually raising two kids in that Minecraft, while you may be having one kid in your real life. I mean, I'm only trying to show you how complex the games are. It's a completely different virtual environment, and you're interacting in very, very differently. So the thing which we can all do, right, with all of this, is that the challenges have also grown. So while the game systems and the analytics have helped improve the games, but at the same time, a real world has also gotten more complex. The problems that we have in the business organizations have also gotten more complex. So the example which I gave earlier about mergers and acquisitions, uh, trying to simulate a game like that in the earlier in the ancient times would have been very, very different, or very, very difficult, or very complex. But now, in the kind of game systems that I'm talking about, with literally millions of variables, with logic and allocation rules, you can actually create a game system for a complex business problem and then deploy it on your employees. It is a completely different interactive experience, which helps move your mind in a very different direction. So yes, I mean, I do not want to disagree with you. I fully agree with you that the complexity of the games has increased, and they're matching with the complexity of the business problems that we have now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Agarwal. But only thing is, nowadays parents are worried about the games which are coming, which are very violent games, and that is where we have to see the difference between the games which are creating your mind in a positive direction and a negative direction. Thank you very much, Mr. Rochak Agarwal. Now my question goes to Ms. Neha Kumari. You were saying you are a trainer. Nowadays, because of the lockdown, so many online games for the managers are there, and the offline, as our Ms. Day and other have mentioned. So what is the basic difference in these things, or what is more effective, the offline games or the online games? Ms. Neha Kumari, please.
Thank you so much, sir. Firstly, sir, you're right. In the offline, we are not, we are face to face interaction, and it's more motivated. It's more qualitative and quantitative also. But in online, it's using after the pandemic, because due to the pandemic we are not going to another for the meetings and trainings purpose, and we are not come to in the office. So we start the online games like psych, like dashboard, like a Jamboard. You know that the Google Jamboard. So we start the Jamboard, but it's a better for thing is online and offline is both. But main thing is a face-to-face interaction. It's a more because motivation is a by face. It's more interactive and
Okay.
more qualitative.
Okay. So according to you, it's a blended type of training is better with a offline and online. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
So today you have viewers, you have seen how the games are becoming very, very important and playing a very important role in the business world or the corporate world. And if you want to be a successful employee or a manager, you have to know what are these games. And these games are beneficial if you are taking in a right spirit, as well as they are proper games. If there is a defective game, if the instructor is not proper, or if some other motives are there, then the games can be destructive. But overall, the today's conference, the inference is that the managers, the games managers should play, and they must go for the things. And we must change, like now the national education policy has even come out the 2 days back, when our honorable prime minister Mr. Modi has gazetted officially now after 1 year of introduction of the policy. So I'm sure these types of games will be there in the, at least in the higher studies, so that the when the student or the employee will go, they will not have any such type of hurdles in adjustments, because these games are happening everywhere in the world, and in India we require these games so that more and more effectiveness can be there. Thank you very much. And today's program has been live telecasted by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, News Gaon se, Malnadu TV India, Samvad Sarokar News, as well as it was shown live on Facebook and YouTube. And our endeavor in our evening program of Kal Aaj Aur Kal Lal Goel Ke Sang at 4:30 p.m. is to introduce you with a personality, with a guest who has achieved in his lifetime, and he has reached on top. And from his mouth, his autobiography. And today, my chief guest is Mr. Atul R. Shah. He's the executive president, All India Bharat Gas Distributors Association, and he's joining from Mumbai. So please tune in today at 4:30 p.m. for Kal Aaj Aur Kal Lal Goel Ke Sang. And thank you very much, Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal. Thank you very much, Ms. Rosemary Day. Thank you very much, Mr. Rochak Agrawal. And thank you very much, Ms. Neha Kumari, for giving your very, very enlightening gaming's views. And I'm sure all our viewers are also